Today's familiar gospel, appointed for this first Sunday after Easter every year, might be heard in a new way this year. Thomas has had the label doubting attached to his name as long as I can remember. But I like to call him not doubting, but honest Thomas. If we first go back to the 14th chapter in John's Gospel, we hear Jesus saying at the Last Supper, quote, "And after I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to myself, so that you will be where I am. You know the way that leads to the place I am going." And then, like that one kid in 4th grade who has the courage and honesty to raise his hand when the teacher asks, "Do you all understand what I'm saying?" and says, "No, we don't," Thomas speaks up. "Lord, we do not know the way where you are going, so how can we know the way?" "Lord, I don't understand." That's not doubting. That's being honest. Moving now to today's gospel, we must first consider Thomas's mistake. Overwhelmed by his mixed emotions of shock and fear and sadness, which many people were feeling after Jesus was crucified and laid in the tomb, he withdraws from the community. He cuts himself off from the company of the other disciples who could have helped him cope. In doing so, he missed the first appearance of Jesus. It may be a natural tendency to initially withdraw and wallow in sorrow at such times, but it's the worst thing we can do. It is precisely at those times we need the fellowship and support of others. Thomas eventually did come back. We could look at today's two-scene, two-act gospel as Thomas's move from doubt to faith. I would simply argue that what we call doubting is not so far from just being honest. His demand for proof represents an honest desire to know what was really going on. He questions not to be negative or to rock the boat, but to be sure. How much better that is than just taking everything for granted. William Barclay points out another positive thing about doubting Thomas. He writes that one of Thomas's great virtues was that, quote, "When he was sure, he went the whole way. My Lord and my God." There was no halfway with Thomas. He asked for proof to become sure, and when he did, his surrender to certainty was complete. None of us are without our doubts or questions from time to time about what life brings us. You know, we say things like, "Why this? Why now? What's really going on here?" And none of us has a perfect or a complete faith. But we stick together and we bring the faith we do have to our communities of faith. Sometimes a strong faith, sometimes a shaking faith, sometimes a growing faith, sometimes a shrinking faith. And sometimes do we not just come to our communities of faith for a jump start? We may also come not only with questions, but expectations that God may have something to teach us. God may surprise us. God may reveal to us something new. When we bring the faith we do have and combine it with others' faith, we are stronger. We can go forward with more confidence encouraged than we could if we went forward alone. I mean, consider the Nicene Creed, which Marcia will lead in just a moment. It's not I, but we believe. We believe. We put all of our faith together. Given the situation we are in on this April 19th, 2020, let me just suggest 3 things today's gospel can teach us right now. Like Thomas, be honest with yourself and others about how you are feeling. The sudden shift in our lives has affected us all in different ways and to different degrees. But we need to recognize that our life is different and be honest with each other about how it's affecting us. Underneath our coping on the surface may be real turmoil. And of course, uncertainty may be the emotion everyone's sharing right now. So be honest as you reach out to others for help. And second, like Thomas, even with occasional feelings of wanting to withdraw, keep in contact with any resource or community that will give you strength. That's hard right now, of course, but in some ways, at least, we are more aware of our need for community. And third, like Thomas, do not be shy about proclaiming your faith when those amazing grace moments come, when you are filled with the peace and joy of knowing that Christ is risen, that Christ is still in charge. Do not be shy about sharing those wonderful moments, because they come even in the midst of times like this. I mean, consider those words. You may have heard these before. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. For honest Thomas, that hour came when he returned to his community. And it was in that context he recognized and worshiped the risen Lord. And finally, let us not forget the one verse in today's gospel which is especially for us. Quote, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." That's you and me. You know, I like that phrase, come to believe, because it reminds me that in spite of my special I have met the Lord moments, I am still becoming a Christian over my whole lifetime. I am still growing, trying to grow into the full stature of Christ. I am still, like the psalmist, tasting and seeing that the Lord is good. I am still discovering what it means to belong to Jesus. Dear St. Dunstan's friends, life has changed, but it has not ended. We are going through a difficult phase, a difficult maze, we might say, but we will eventually come out the other side to a different, but a good new land. We are going through a course correction, which hopefully will help us spend less frantic time in all the mazes of life and more quality time in the labyrinths that lead us step by step to the center. Draw us nearer and nearer to the source so that we know that in him we live and move and have our being, as that wonderful collect for morning prayer reminds us. And so what else is there to say? In the midst of this extraordinary time that we are living through, apart and yet like never before together, but to repeat these words from our second lesson, this time in a new contemporary version. What a God we have, and how fortunate we are to have him this Father of our Master Jesus. Because Jesus was raised from the dead, we've been given a brand new life and have everything to live for, including a future in heaven. And the future starts now. You never saw him, yet you love him. You still don't see him, but you trust him with laughter and singing. Because you kept on believing, you'll get what you're looking forward to: total salvation. So, with honest Thomas, we can say, and let us say right now, my Lord and my God. Amen.